My dad said, "She's just after your money." I laughed until I heard her say, "Once the house is mine, I'm gone." So I froze our accounts and played the recording. I met Kira at a friend's rooftop party in the city. She was standing by the drinks table, sipping something pink and laughing with a small group of people I didn't recognize. She was magnetic, smart, funny, confident. We got to talking, and somehow the whole evening passed in a blur. I drove her home that night, and we talked until 3 a.m. outside her apartment. The next weekend, we went on our first real date. 6 months later, I was head over heels. I'm not the type to fall fast, but Kira had this way of making me feel like the only person in the room. She asked about my day, remembered the smallest things I mentioned, made jokes that hit just right, and had this energy that pulled people in. I thought I'd struck gold. I was already looking at rings. When I brought her home to meet my family, I was a little nervous, but mostly excited. My mom liked her right away. Kira complimented the cooking and offered to help with dishes. My younger sister said she seemed cool. But my dad, he stayed quiet through most of dinner. He was polite, sure, but there was something in his eyes. A kind of calculation. Later that night, after we dropped Kira off and the house was quiet, Dad called me into the kitchen. He poured us both a glass of water, leaned against the counter, and said, "Son, I don't think she's with you for the right reasons. I think she's after your money." I laughed, genuinely laughed. I told him she had a career. She was a freelance graphic designer. She wasn't jobless, and she never asked me for anything directly. And besides, it's not like I was a billionaire. I had a solid job as a software engineer, yeah, but I wasn't on some Forbes list. Dad just nodded and said, "Be careful. Just pay attention." I dismissed it at the time, but his words lingered. Like a splinter you can't quite find but feel every time you move a certain way. Then I started noticing things I hadn't before. Like how often she'd forget her wallet when we went out. At first, I didn't mind. I mean, it happens. But it wasn't just once. It was most of the time. And when we'd pass stores, she'd casually point things out, designer bags, expensive skincare, limited edition sneakers, and say things like, "If only I had the budget for this," then give me this half smile like I was supposed to swoop in and make it happen. I did. A lot. Without really thinking. I told myself it was just part of being a good boyfriend. There was one moment that should have been a red flag, clear as day. She asked me to co-sign a car loan. She said it was just temporary, that she'd pay me back monthly. I agreed. I even helped her with the paperwork. She never made a single payment. Not one. But I kept brushing it off. I told myself that real love was about generosity and trust, and that maybe she was just in a tight spot. I didn't want to be the guy who doubted his partner every time something felt off. I mean, relationships aren't scorecards. Still, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling. And the more I looked at things, the more I started wondering, was I the only one investing in this relationship? Was I falling for an image while ignoring the truth right in front of me? A few weeks after that conversation with my dad, things between Kira and me seemed fine on the surface. She still laughed at my jokes, still gave me those warm, lingering hugs, still asked how work was going, even if her attention drifted halfway through my answers. On the outside, everything looked solid, but something had shifted in me. Quietly, I'd stopped brushing things off. I didn't want to believe it, but I started observing her in small ways. Not obsessively, just trying to see things clearly. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was a Wednesday. I was working from home, unexpectedly. A late meeting got canceled, so instead of heading to the office, I stayed back, answering emails and debugging some code in the living room. Kira had no idea I was home. She thought I'd left hours earlier. Around noon, I heard her voice coming from the bedroom. She was on the phone, doors slightly ajar. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. At first, I was just about to say hi and ask if she wanted lunch. But then I heard something that made me stop mid-step. Asterisk. "Yeah, he's got money, and he's totally in love with me," she said casually, like she was talking about the weather. "I'm just playing along until I get the house in my name. Once that's done, I'll figure out how to break it off without losing anything." I stood there, not moving. My hands went cold. I didn't know who she was talking to. A friend? Someone else? It didn't matter. The words hit me like static in my ears, sharp, uncomfortable, impossible to tune out. She kept talking, laughing. It sounded like she was planning the end before I even realized we were in the middle. I backed away quietly, sat down on the couch, and did something I never thought I'd do. I opened the voice recorder on my phone and hit record. I didn't know why. I guess some part of me just wanted proof, for myself, if nothing else. Proof that I hadn't imagined it. After she left later that afternoon, I played the recording over and over again. The audio wasn't perfect, but her voice was clear. Her intent was clearer. I didn't cry. I just sat there, thinking. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to make sure I protected myself first. The next day, I called my lawyer. Told him I needed to review the house deed and car documents. Everything, thankfully, was still in my name. I'd been stupid, sure, but not completely reckless. I froze our joint account, called my bank and had her removed from my cards, changed a few passwords, double-checked my documents. I played dumb around her for a few more days, acted like everything was normal, smiled, made coffee, even watched a movie with her one evening. Meanwhile, I was packing her things slowly, room by room, into boxes she wouldn't notice. And then, when everything was in place, I asked her to sit down. She looked confused, maybe a little curious. I opened my laptop, clicked play, and let the recording speak for itself. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even blink. That was the moment I stopped loving her. Kira didn't say a word while the recording played. Her face shifted, but not in the ways I expected. No shock, just stillness, like she was weighing her next move rather than reacting to what she'd been caught doing. When the audio stopped, there was a long pause. Then she looked at me and said, "So what now?" That was it. No apology. No attempt to explain. Just those 3 words, like this was some inconvenience she'd deal with, and then move on. I stared at her for a few seconds, still half hoping something real would come through. But it didn't. Whatever part of her had once cared, if that ever existed, was gone. Or maybe it had never been there at all. I stood up and handed her a folded envelope. Inside were the keys to a storage unit where I'd packed her belongings. Her clothes, her books, everything she'd left scattered in drawers and closets. It was all there. I'd even labeled the boxes. "You'll find everything there. I've already paid for the next 2 months," I said quietly. "After that, it's on you." She opened her mouth to say something, maybe argue, maybe plead, but then shut it again. She looked around the apartment one last time. That familiar cold calm was back in her eyes, the same look she probably gave her friend on that phone call. "You really think you're better off without me?" she asked, like she genuinely couldn't imagine a version of my life that didn't include her. I nodded once. "Yeah, I do." She left that weekend. No drama, no big exit. She packed a duffel bag, walked out the front door, and never looked back. A few hours later, I noticed she'd blocked me on everything: phone, socials, even Venmo. I didn't try to reach out. There was nothing left to say. The following week, I drove to my parents' place. I hadn't told them anything yet, needed time to process it on my own. When I finally sat down with my dad and told him the full story, including the recording, the lawyer, everything, he didn't say, "I told you so." He just let out a tired sigh and pulled me into a hug. "I've lived longer, son," he said. "Sometimes it's not about love. It's about what someone can take from you. You don't see it when you're deep in it. But some people, they treat relationships like business deals." We sat there in silence for a while. He didn't judge me, didn't make me feel foolish, just sat with me. It hurt. Of course it did. I'd wanted it to be real. I wanted the version of her I met that first night to be true, not some performance crafted to win me over. But the truth is, she played a role, and I paid for the ticket. Looking back now, I realize I ignored a lot of signs because I wanted to believe in her. And maybe that's the hardest part, forgiving yourself for falling for someone who never really existed. But I learned something I won't forget. Real love doesn't come with price tags, strings, or strategies. It shows up, stands by you, and never needs convincing. Sometimes, the ones who love you most, like your parents, see the storm long before you do. And when they speak, it's not to control your life. It's to save you from being pulled under. So yeah, I learned the hard way, but at least I learned. What do you think? Was I too blind? Or too patient? Would you have handled it differently?